Okay. Hello everyone. I hope you are able to see my screen and listen to my voice. So I'll just check in a second if the broadcast is actually live. Okay, great. So, okay, so I'm Shaurya, and I'm the upcoming secretary of the DevClub IIT Delhi. And so DevClub welcomes you all to this blockchain webinar, and we are so happy that you're able to make it because the event was released only like on Wednesday, and it feels good when like-minded developers and technical passionate people actually come together for something like this. And even in this times of corona pandemic going out throughout the country, that we are still able to be here and be a part of something technical and learn full experience. So okay, so I'm gonna start with the introduction to who we are at DevClub IIT Delhi, and then I'm gonna give a small workshop overview, and then I'm going to tell you about the speakers who are going to be joining us later in the day in the workshop. And then I'll call Geeta Kakrani, who's the founder of GDG Gwalior, who actually collaborated with us to make this whole thing happen, right? Okay, so without any delays, so let me tell you something about DevClub IIT Delhi. So we are a group of like-minded students based out of IIT Delhi, and we collaborate together, we work together in development projects so that we could learn from each other and actually know how communities in the open source work. Apart from that, we also organize a few events for IIT Delhi students because we aim to spread a technical aptitude across the campus, which is kind of not there right now, but we hope that it will be prevalent across the campus very soon. But if you are a technical developer like us, then you won't be actually caring about what kind of events we do. You'll be caring about what kind of work we do. So for that, please check out our projects on our website and on our GitHub repo because we kind of mostly work in open source. And for more such events that we organize for the internal and external students, please check out our Facebook page. And also in the form that you guys fill for the registration, there would be links to our other social media channels, right? Okay, so that's all about us. So right now we are all here for this workshop on blockchain that is going to be hosted by the Tezos guys. And so the overview we also shared in the post, and the overview is something like they will tell about the Tezos India Foundation, what is blockchain, the Bitcoin story, Ethereum, and then the open source Tezos Foundation, how to run as protocol and other things. That will all be taken by Jignesh. Okay. So yeah. So let me tell you about a little bit about the speakers that we'll be getting from Tezos. So the first one would be Om Malviya. He is the president of Tezos India Foundation. He founded Tezos India, and he also co-founded InsurTech startup, which is one of the first projects built on Tezos. And apart from that, he's a published researcher in blockchain scalability and co-founder of blockchain.com. So yeah, so he'll be telling more about himself when he joins and giving you a little bit brief about what Tezos is and what it all means in the world of blockchain. And most of the workshop will be covered by Jignesh Vasoya, who is the tech lead at Tezos India, who will be giving you a brief introduction about blockchain and explaining how their platform, open source platform, works. So he's a full stack developer with more than 6 years of experience, and he has experience in multiple blockchain platforms, Ethereum, Hyperledger Fabric, and he built stuff on that. He built a decentralized lending platform, and he's currently involved in Tezos ecosystem and an active member of the open source community. So for this event to happen, we also collaborated with GDG Gwalior. We actually have a lead on board, Geeta Kakrani, who's on board with us, helping us, guiding us to all these events because this is first time for DevClub IIT Delhi. So about them, so they are a group of developers who get resources by Google, and they organize meetups, they organize events, so they create a local ecosystem of developers across the city and even outside the city, as you're seeing that they're collaborating with us. So their main aim is also to have technological awareness across India, and yeah, so they are really good bunch of developers and really help us a lot. So without taking any much more of your time, I'm gonna introduce Geeta Kakrani, who is the founder of GDG Gwalior, and she's also the brand ambassador of Women Tech Makers in Google. So I think I'll hand it over to her, so she can introduce herself, and then we can go on with the workshop. Geeta, would you like to come in?
Hi, Shaurya. Thank you so much for inviting me. And really, it's a good opportunity to then I can collaborate with IIT, DevClub IIT Delhi. It's a really win for me. And I'm the organizer, just Shaurya said already, I'm an organizer of and founder of the Google Developer Group in Gwalior and brand ambassador of WTM, yani Women's Tech Maker in Google. But what is a Google Developer Group? Many persons know about that because it's across in all world. So what is the real goal of and real mean of the Google Developer Group? Actually, Google Developer Group is just a community, and our goal is only just we should invite, we should introduce latest technology, rising topics nowadays. because obviously career options are increasing with latest technology. If we will go traditional tasks like a C, C++, data structure, it can be basic, but it's not your, we can say it can be beneficial, more beneficial, your advanced career option. So if you want to grow in your career option in advanced technology, if you want to catch right trending topic, then I'm trying to always bring latest technology. I'm trying to bring always latest topics, and not only from the Google. I will try to call from other companies like Amazon, like other Flipkart, and today we are calling blockchain. So obviously, Tezos is not a part of Google. So many person think you are a Google developer group and how can call Tezos company. So Google not support only personal their product. It's not a limited. They support to all trending topics, to all interesting topic, and obviously rising in the market. So blockchain is also very trending topic and appealing topic nowadays, and rising topic. Then it can obviously enhance your career option in advanced way. So for that, we should call expert Mr. Om and Jignesh, who is the founder of the Tezos Technologies, Tezos Foundation. Just sure already introduced them. So I should call him. We should not waste our time. So I would like to invite Mr. Om.
Hi.
Hello, Om.
Hi everyone. Hi.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Geeta. Thank you so much, Shaurya, for such a warm introduction and welcome. First of all,
Yeah.
thanks a lot to Google Developers Groups Gwalior. Thanks a lot to DevClub IIT Delhi to having us here, and we are really excited to share the entire our journey and our experience and our knowledge with you guys so that you can sail smoothly in this world of blockchain and other technologies.
Yeah,
So,
thank you so much, Om. You are giving your precious time. So obviously, it is a very very mean for us. And really, I want to. But many person don't know about what is a blockchain because it's a new topic in the market. So you should put the light on this topic from beginning.
yeah, definitely. We will start from beginning. I mean, I'll
Yeah,
start
yeah.
just giving a brief introduction of Tezos India Foundation. But just to answer your question, a lot of people can use Google in a lot of ways. I mean, mainly Google Cloud and stuff like that. Google Cloud is also what we also use to, handle to deploy some smart contracts and deploy the blockchain on top of cloud. So there are multiple ways that you guys can, without having to run your own server and without having to run your own node, you can integrate with cloud. But all talks, behind. Let me start with just giving a brief introduction of me and my colleague Jignesh, and just a brief introduction of what Tezos India Foundation is, just what Tezos is in a general way. Then Jignesh will lead you guys to share information, share knowledge about what blockchain is, how can you understand blockchain from from a simple perspective, and what are opportunities for there, what opportunities are there for you guys, and how can you leverage those opportunities. And I mean, we'll be sharing a lot of more information. So let me first kickstart with just giving a brief introduction about. So I'm O. I'm director of Tezos India Foundation, and Jignesh, he is also tech lead of Tezos India Foundation. Jignesh is also founding member of Tezos India Foundation. So we started Tezos India Foundation to like there is Google developer groups, there are Facebook developer circles, there are multiple developer communities in India which evangelize, which promotes, and which helps people to engage into this new emerging technology. So in the same way, Tezos India Foundation is here to help you guys, to help everyone, to help developers, to help normal people to engage into Tezos blockchain technology. Tezos is a blockchain. You'll get to know what kind of what blockchain is. But just like let's say Ethereum or Hyperledger or other blockchain technologies that you might have heard, Tezos is kind of similar. But there are some unique properties. There are some unique features to it, which makes Tezos unique and which makes Tezos very lucrative, so that many governments, many big investment banks across the world are right now using Tezos. And we are one of the early members, and we have taken the initiative to help bring Tezos to India, so that guys like you, developers and students and normal people, everyone can have access and can have understanding of what Tezos is and how can they build on top of Tezos, so that it can help in their career, can help in their interest, and can help them to build their next application. So let me share my screen to share just a brief overview. So hi everyone, welcome to Tezos. This is a very big ecosystem. This is a very big world. We have Tezos organization all over the world, and they are always growing. We have Tezos community all over the world. It is always growing. Let me start up with just the introduction of what Tezos India Foundation is, where Tezos India Foundation fits in this huge world of Tezos. We founded Tezos India Foundation in September 2019 to support and promote the Tezos ecosystem growth in India. We have some very basic goals, where first of them is education, where we teach and share knowledge about subjects such as smart contract development on Tezos, understanding of Tezos protocol, blockchain mechanism, etc. These are the topics that we cover during the workshop in collaboration with universities or regional community group, regional developer community group, regional developers, etc. Our goal is to educate and discover new Tezos engineers in India. So, like, we organize this kind of events very often, and we teach you guys to how you can start developing on top of Tezos. And then we try to engage you guys in more developer activities, so that you can also be a part of the largest ecosystem. This is one of the example of the first workshop that we did in D2 Delhi, where we trained more than 70 engineers. The second thing that we do is meetups. So we have identified the 7 tech hubs in India where we do frequent meetups. Not now, but usually before COVID-19, we used to do a lot of meetups, and after COVID-19, we will do a lot of meetups. So in these meetups, the best thing about for students and developers is that they get to network with the people who are in industry, who are in corporate, who are in startups, who are building projects. So what we do in meetups, we bring all the people together in one place, be it startups, be it corporates, be it students, be it developers, and we bring all kind of people in one place, and we discuss about Tezos. And all of them can have their different interests regarding to Tezos, and they can discuss how they can collaborate and how can they network, which is a very good opportunity for emerging developers and new students. This is one of the meetup that we did in Cyber City in Gurgaon. Third thing is we support the technology research through partnerships. So we partner with universities, we partner with the society chapters in universities, we partner with startups, we partner with companies, we partner with basically everyone who has shared interest in Tezos and those who wants to research into this technology further and want to build on top of Tezos. And we deploy all the help, support, and resources necessary so that they can pursue their goals and they can go forward. This is one of the events that we did in IISc Bangalore. It was India's largest blockchain developer conference, where we also delivered a workshop on blockchain on Tezos, and a lot of people also delivered their experience about the blockchain and the research that is being done in the blockchain area. Now, opportunities. What are the opportunities for you guys? This is one of the very interesting point. So, one thing is that Tezos has a grant program. So the developers who wish to contribute to ecosystem by building, let's say, developer tools or libraries or languages, anything that can be used by a wider developer community, or that can help a lot of people, that would be eligible for a grant program. And if you apply for such a project, such a proposal with proper structure, you can be eligible for a grant. And a grant usually vary from $10,000, $50,000, $100,000, depending upon the necessity of the project and the architecture. Now, grants are usually hard because in order to get a grant, you have to be a very experienced developer and you have to have the knowledge of your domain, or also you have of what exact kind of building block you want to build, which can fit in exactly in the community. But to prevent that, to encourage the new developers, new emerging people into the ecosystem, we organize hackathons. So in hackathons, we wish to support the developers with excellent project ideas who are building really good and amazing ideas on top of Tezos. So we recently concluded a hackathon where we had prizes up to $6,000, and a lot of people built some exciting ideas, some exciting projects on top of Tezos. And if your project is something which can be contributed to the larger community, we can also take it forward to grants. If your project is something which can, become a business case, then we can also help you guys to connect with VCs and raise funding. So basically, we deploy support and resources from taking you guys from 0 to 10. I mean, from beginning to end, so that you guys can be sustainable and you guys can, have all the resources and all the connection and your play. And this is one of a very amazing thing that Tezos has. Tezos is a global, open source, decentralized platform. Nobody owns Tezos. It's a decentralized platform. There is no CEO. There is no CTO. It is like Linux, if you, in a sense, you can say it's an open source technology. And Tezos community, which uses this technology and which helps spreading word about a technology, is a global, vibrant community. It is spread over all of the countries. We have Tezos organization in all the countries like USA, Southeast Asia, India, everywhere. And you as a new emerging or new member or the emerging developer in the Tezos ecosystem get a chance to network with a global, vibrant community of over 50,000 plus active members. So you get to engage in conversation with a lot of new developers or a lot of old developers, a lot of general community members, a lot of economists. So you get to network with a lot of very amazing minds all over the world to increase your knowledge about Tezos and the blockchain and economics and finance as a whole. So that was just a brief introduction about Tezos India Foundation. Again, Tezos India Foundation in India has goals to promote Tezos technology and support and promote Tezos ecosystem further. We are always ready to help out anyone who wants to build any new thing, any new project on top of Tezos, or who is willing to explore Tezos. And we will help you guys to how to go forward regarding that, and how to build your next killer idea, or how to build your next killer project on top of Tezos. That was about Tezos India Foundation. Now, I hope you guys, I'm sure you guys just got a brief idea. Still, it was not complete because you'll have to understand more about blockchain and what is Tezos. First, Jignesh will take you through what is blockchain and where all the other blockchain, like the first idea of Bitcoin and everyone fits in, and then where comes the Tezos. So this was just a normal, non-technical talk from my side. And again, after the talk is all over, if you guys have any questions, anything that you want to build on top of Tejas, if you want to collaborate with us, we are also looking for campus ambassador, which we are giving the name Tejas Sarthi. You will be a Sarthi to take the Tejas Rath forward. And if you guys want to, if there is any student club or student chapter in your university who wants to collaborate with Tejas India, we have many plans. We have very good funding support for everyone who wants to host Tejas programs, who wants to build on top of Tejas. And we will help you guys in any way that we can to support and promote this ecosystem further. Thank you, guys. I hope you guys got even the 20% or 30% of such a brief idea what this is. It's a non-profit foundation based out of India who deploys resources to take the ecosystem in India forward. Now I'll try. I would like to call Jignesh, who will take you through the entire journey of blockchain and who will help you understand this technology better. Thank you very much, Jignesh. Are you there? Can you
Yeah,
please take it forward from here?
yeah, sure. Yeah. So hey, hi guys. Good afternoon. I think you guys got the idea of what Tezos Foundation, right, is, and then what we do as a part of the whole Tezos India ecosystem, right? So yeah, before let's say jumping into what Tezos and all, right, we should be starting with the blockchain fundamentals, right? What is blockchain? So I'll just take you through the blockchain 101, right? So but yeah, so a few rules that I just want you to like kind of mention is we'll keep this session interactive. So whatever doubts or anything, right, you can just put it into the comments part, right? I'll be continuously monitoring that section, right? So I'll be able to like answer all of your queries, right? So yeah, I think probably let's get started. I'm just sharing my screen. It may take up to 1 minute. Yeah, cool. So how many of you, let's say, know what is Bitcoin or hold any amount of Bitcoin? You can put it in comments, right? You can say yes, no, yay, nope, rect. If you are deep into blockchain and cryptocurrency, you would know what is rect. Yeah. And also, yeah, before jumping to the let's say Bitcoin part, right? There was one important event yesterday, right, regarding the Bitcoin. So like, will have I think some kind of goodies sent to you, right? If you know the answer of what was that event, May 22, right, related to Bitcoin. Yeah, cool. Okay, Aryan. Yeah, I think. Yeah, I know. Yes. Cool. So I think like most of the people don't know what is Bitcoin, right? So I will start with that. Bitcoin is one special case of blockchain technology, right? So Bitcoin is a digital currency, and it is not as simple as let's say kind of creating a digital equivalent of let's say Indian rupee or US dollar, right? It is a completely decentralized digital currency which nobody monitors, right? So when let's say you remove the any monitoring or any third party trust, right, it becomes difficult to maintain that network and the validity of the network, right? So that becomes very difficult, right? Yeah. So okay, I get it. I think most of you don't have let's say much idea of what Bitcoin is, right? But then we don't have to worry about that, correct? Because here we are. That's the whole point, right? We'll be learning all of them, right? So generally what happens is, let's say even if a person kind of holds even 0.001 of Bitcoin, right, they'll be like, yeah, I know, I'm a cryptocurrency expert, I know how to like invest, or I can tell that, okay, how to make 25 din mein paisa double kind of thing, right? So you would meet all these kind of people once you get involved into, let's say, blockchain and cryptocurrency world, right? So you should be wary of them, right? Or yeah, and you'll find this kind of people as well, right? Will be like, yeah, I'm in it for technology, while actually their main interest would be to make money out of it, right? I understand that the that goal would be to generate some kind of a money, right? But then what we are going to do here, right, or as a blockchain developer, our role will be mostly around the tech part of the whole thing. Yeah. Correct. So let's actually go and learn that what's it all about, right? What is it, Bitcoin or blockchain? Because generally people use both the terms interchangeably, right? They think that both are the same thing. But just to give a clear idea, right? Blockchain is a technology, right? And Bitcoin is one of the use case of that technology, right? So Bitcoin is a digital currency, and it uses blockchain to kind of make or maintain its value, right? So that's all about, probably, let's say, that's the primary difference between blockchain and a Bitcoin. Correct. So if you have heard from the people, right, like Bitcoin is illegal or Bitcoin is banned, right? And then people will go and tell that even blockchains are banned, right? So I understand you would have heard all these things in past 1 to 3 years, right? So, but just to tell you, right, none of them is illegal. And what had happened is, I think 2 years back, right, in the 2018, RBI had like instructed all the banks that any of the startup or the companies, right, which would deal in cryptocurrency. So RBI related institution, right? So basically all the banks or NBFCs, they should not do any business with all these companies who are, let's say, handling or dealing in cryptocurrency. But earlier this year, right, in Jan, Supreme Court has kind of had given its verdict, right, that it is not like constitutional, right? So basically it's unconstitutional to ban or prevent any organization to deal with any of the financial institution, right, just based on this, that you fear that that there are some wrongdoings with let's say using cryptocurrency or Bitcoin as per se, right? But it is not like that. Even US dollars, or let's say for that matter any currency, right, it's widely being used for illegal or illicit activities, right? And that doesn't mean that we are not using it, right? So there always be some people who would be using any technology for not good of the people, right? They'll want to harm people, or they want use it in a general good sense, right? So yeah, those are the misconception are there about, let's say, Bitcoin and blockchain, right? But nothing is illegal in let's say India. So you can build a startup around this, right, where you are accepting payment in Bitcoin or Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency for that matter, and nobody's going to stop you, right? So that's the whole deal. Yeah. So with that, I think let's dive into the technical part of the whole thing. By the way, any questions, any doubt, right? Uh, Please feel free to post it in the comment section, right? Yeah, correct, Ruchi. Yeah, first learn and then earn. Yeah, that's the whole deal. Everybody wants to, let's say, earn, right? But then you have to have knowledge, and then you can leverage that knowledge to help people and then earn also, right? Yeah. So can anybody tell me what is this from this slide, right? What is it, or what does it represents, or something like that? By the way, there is no stupid answers, right? There are only, even for that matter, there are not stupid questions as well. So you can just answer whatever you feel, right? Yeah, start of the internet. Yes, that's correct. Let's wait for others. Generally, what happens is there is a 1 minute delay between, let's say, what I'm presenting to you and then what it comes to your screen, right? Sometimes in the max case. So that's why there will be little bit of long pauses of, let's say, 30-45 seconds, right? Yes, first search engine. Yes, correct. Web browser. Yes, Radip. Correct. So, yes, finance focused search engine. No, 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 no. I think it has nothing to do with that. Only ever heard of Alta Vista in my school books. Yes, exactly. I think all of us, right, being in the kind of born in the same era, right, we all would have, at one point in our life, right, would have come across this in our school time. Yeah. Correct. So I'll just tell you, right, that this is the web page, right, or a web browser look that it used to look in, let's say, early 90s, at the start of the internet, right? So that's what, and now you know, right, that how it looks like with all the latest, let's say, portals and latest HTML, CSS technology. Correct. So that's what I wanted to compare with, right? So the current state of blockchain, right? It is still in the same phase that internet was in 90s, right? It is still in primary stage where, like, we don't have, let's say, many of the tools and things around, right? It probably like kind of a more tech savvy, right? People who know, who are more technical, right, or who are like kind of technically literate, only they can, let's say, do things around this, right? So yes, to give analogy, right, we are in that state of what was internet in early 90s, right, or in early stage. Correct. But now, if you know, right, this is what looks like of current internet, right? So what had happened after that is, we got, like, websites got improved, right? So basically, we have like dynamic web pages, right, which updates without, let's say, making many calls to the server, right? Or let's say you are able to share photos or upload photos or PDF docs, right? And then you are able to do PPTs, and then yeah, we are able to do all this live conferencing, right? So nobody in, let's say, early 90s, right, would have thought that we will have YouTube live sessions, right? And then Keriminati would be roasting, let's say, all the TikTokers live on the some platform, right? So nobody would have thought. So that's the power of technology, right? At beginning, you don't know what kind of a change it could bring. So yes, you have to just go along and build it in chunks, right? And make, like, most use of that. Correct. Yeah. So regarding the all the Bitcoin related things, right? That, yeah, what will happen to the 21 million is mined, or other things, right? Yes, I'll be talking about that. So yeah, I think hold your horses. Correct. So this is what our internet looks like, right, currently, and it has improved a lot over, let's say, past 20 years. Correct. But if you know, right, most of the internet is kind of a centralized manner, right? When I say centralized, is there are few companies which kind of handles the whole internet traffic, or let's say all the data on the internet. So yeah, so basically all your data, and then what's happening is, basically they are kind of earning money through your data, right? So there's nothing wrong about that. Correct. But then it's all in centralized manner, and what should ideally happen is, you should basically have power over, let's say, your data, or anything else, right? Your search history, or basically everything. But then uh, it always comes with some cost, right? Because let's say if Google Photos allows you to upload unlimited number of photos, right? So it is giving you unlimited storage, but then in return what you are giving is you are giving your consent to, let's say, Google, that okay, you could be using my photos for, let's say, training their ML algorithm, right? So that is why, so it's kind of a win-win, right? But the thing is, it's not that balance, right? The money that they would be generating out of our data would be much more than what we would be, let's say, spending for 1 TB of, let's say, hard disk, or 2 TB of hard disk, right? But yeah, that's the whole deal. And now that everybody's data aware, right, what should happen is a little bit of decentralization, right? That doesn't hurt much, right? People should have a power in their hand, that whether what they want to do or what they don't want to do, right? And here again, this Google Photo is just one example, right? I know that Google Drive is alternate of that, right, where I can pay and get the storage. But I just wanted to give you an analogy, right? It's not true in all of the cases. Like, let's say if you are using some app, right, for that matter TikTok, right, it gets so much of data from your mobile phone, even like what all applications are installed, and then probably your other history on the device itself, right? So yeah, it has access to those data, and people are basically not aware about that, right? So apart from, let's say, few technically aware people, everybody is not aware of that, and then that data could be used against the people as well. So that's the whole point of decentralization: give more power to the people, right? They should be deciding what they want to do or what they don't want to do. Correct. Yeah. So now, why Bitcoin, right? So as of now, you would be knowing that to do any transaction, right, we need bank. So can anybody tell me why do we need banks, right? You can post it in comments. So let's see, if I want to send money from person A to person B, right, I am using, or I am going through some channel via bank, right? Or for that matter, let's say if I want to send money from US to India, right, I have to go through some bank channels. So can anybody tell me, like, why do we need banks? Okay, I know. I think there's a whole separate discussion going in comment section right now that I see about the mining and other thing, right? Yeah, we'll be talking about those. As I told you, right? Hold your horses. We'll be discussing everything, right? All the points that you guys are mentioning. It is a part of our today's session, right? Yeah, so correct. To keep track of all the transaction, correct. Flow of money in economy and manage the flow. Yes, to circulate money in economy. Yes or no, but then I can directly give money to people, right? And then circulation happens. Why do we need banks? For tracking the record of money which send and receives among person or between two different people. Yes, exactly, correct. So yeah, that is more close. But then I can directly do it without involving a bank, right? I can directly pay a person, right, something, to keep a central record of transaction. Correct. Keep records and allow transaction. Yes, we need bank. Correct. So yes, most of you are correct, right? But then what happens is, again, banks are also offer some kind of centralization, right? When I say centralization is, let's say, you can't do much things without banks, right? So, and then whatever bank says, you have to do. Again, it's not like, let's say your money is secure with bank, right? So let's say if you have 1 crore rupee in your bank account, right, and then that 1 crore will be given to, let's say, some other people by bank. Why? Because they'll be giving you interest, FD interest or saving account bank interest, right, at some percentage. Now that it have reduced in 2 months, right? Otherwise, earlier it was, let's say, saving account interest was 7%, FD interest was around, let's say, 8.5%. What they do is, they take your money, they lend it to somebody, they earn, let's say, interest on that money, and from that interest they'll give you 8%, right? And then the rest of whatever, it could be 16, it could be 12%, they'll just keep it with them, right? But here there's a catch. Let's say if bank loses its money, right, you won't be entitled to, let's say, full amount, right? So before, let's say, April 2020, right, only 1 lakh rupees was secured. So let's say if you have 1 crore in your bank account, and bank somehow loses money, right? I know how somehow is you give bad loans to people, right? So that anybody would be knowing by now. So then what happens is a bank is liable to give you only 1 lakh rupees. If you have known the PNB scam, right? People were not allowed to, let's say, withdraw more than 50,000 from their bank account, which is pretty like weird, right? You have like 10 lakh rupees in a bank account, and then you are just allowed to do withdraw only 50,000. Correct. So that's where the whole bank brings the centralization. And again, to, let's say, going back to the other use case, right? Transferring money from, let's say, USA to India. Correct. What we have to do is we have to use some kind of a bank channels, and then we do Swift transaction, right? To move this money across, right? Bank charges, let's say, around sometimes it would be like 1 to 2%, right? Even your credit cards, right? POS bills or POS transaction where you swipe, those are charged around 2.5 to 3%. So which is a very big amount when you do, let's say, big amount transactions, right? And that too, when you do across borders, it will be like too much. So that's where the need of, let's say, a payments network, which was kind of independent of any intermediary, right? That need was there. And that's what was mentioned in, let's say, Bitcoin's white paper, right, around in 2009. And that's how the whole, let's say, Bitcoin was born, right? So the concept of blockchain was there since long before the Bitcoin white paper was written. But then using the blockchain, Satoshi Nakamoto, right, whose identity is still not known, had written this white paper. So it's not like Satoshi is a person, right? It could be him, it could be her, or it could be a group of people, or it could be group of companies as well, right? So nobody knows that. And so they had written this white paper, and they had promised a kind of a payment network where you don't need any third party intermediary. Correct. Okay, but what about Quadriga? Okay, what is that? I don't know, Karthik. Probably you have to kind of write it. Yeah, correct. So again, talking about payments network, right? Without any intermediary. So it can become, but the difficulty was this double spending problem. So let me tell you a little bit about double spending problem. It's when you make a, let's say, digital payments network, right? Anybody can transfer money to anybody. So let's say all of us, right? All the people who are present in this session, we all are part of a payments network, right? And anybody can transfer money to anybody. But then who will keep record, right? Let's say I have 100 rupees, and then I make a transaction that I am making, let's say, payment of 100 rupees to, let's say, Jatin, right? And then I can also claim that I have made 100 rupees transaction to Minal as well, right? So that is kind of a double spending problem, because how would we know, or how would we can prevent that the money that I'm kind of spending or trying to send, right? It is the actual money that I'm holding. In case of paper money, right, or let's say coins, or physical money, basically, you would be able to kind of you can't do double spend, because you are kind of handing over the that whatever physical asset, right, to another person. So you can't give the same asset to some person. But when you talk about in digital world, right, it's just some kind of a transaction. So you can do two transaction, right? And then you can spend the same money, or send the same money to other person as well. So that's the whole problem of double spending. Okay. Again, I think is there privacy in this? If all have record of all transaction, can't people see each other's balance? Yes, exactly. So that's where we are going to, right? So uh, what that's where the whole blockchain comes into picture, that if everybody has all the records, right, then it becomes easier to verify that whether these people, let's say person A, right, whether he has enough balance to make a transaction or not. Correct. So that's where blockchain works as a ledger. What is ledger? You'll just know in the next slide, right? This is your ledger. Yeah, Shubham, I'll just repeat. Correct. So let's say we all of us are in the same network, right? And here we are talking about digital currency. So let's say in digital world, what can happen is I can create two transactions, right, for the same amount of money. So let's say there is a balance in my account is 100 rupees. I can create two transactions that I'm sending, let's say 100 rupees to person A and then 100 rupees to person B. Correct. But then we don't have any intermediary or central authority here. So how we can verify whether I'm allowed to do this transaction or not? Correct. So that is why what we require is some kind of a universal database or ledger, right? Which knows that how much balance each person has, and then based on that we can decide whether this person can do two transaction of 100 worth or not. Correct. So this is basically a buy khata or khata book, right? That we all would have seen at some point of a time in our grocery shops, right? So what it records is credit and debit, right? Basically, that person got money from, let's say, account A, and then he again paid some money to person B, all those kind of thing, right? So yeah, blockchain is basically this book that you are seeing on your screen, right? And it's yeah, it's as simple as that, nothing else. Correct. And then each page of let's say once you start writing the entries here, right, about all the transactions, what happens is your page gets filled. So what you do generally is you start writing on the next page. Correct. So similarly, in a digital world, what happens is you decide that uh, uh, after, let's say, I collect 1,000 transactions, right? I will pack those 1,000 transactions in a kind of a single block, right? And then from 1,000 first transaction, right, I'll create a new block. So basically, each page of this book is a block, and each page is linked to each other. Now again, to, let's say, simplify this, uh, from the left hand side I will start with the transaction number first. So let's say this page contains 1 to 100 transactions. Once I do the 100th entry, right, I have to do 101. That would be on the next page. So my next page would be nothing but a block. So here my block size would be 100, because my page can only contain 100 transactions. Let's say if I have a book which in which page can contain let's say 1,000 transactions, then my block size would be 1,000. Correct. So for after every 1,000 transaction, I'll be creating a new block. So, and then all these pages are linked to each other. How? That I'll be explaining you. Correct. And that's how whole blockchain is formed. So let's jump to the next slide, and I think it will give you a more clear understanding. Correct. So this looks like, I think, one of the data structures that you studied or you have come across, right? Can somebody tell which data structure it resembles to in the comment section? And I hope, Shubham, I'm clear, or I was able to kind of explain or answer your question. Yes, exactly. Aman, Kanishk, right? Yeah. It is a linked list. Correct. So in linked list, what happens is we have a head node, and then we keep on adding nodes to the tail node, right? So initially, head and tail will be at the same location, and then as we add more nodes, our linked list will grow, right? So blockchain is a linked list only, correct? But it's a kind of a distributed linked list. So basically, everybody in the network, right, has the same copy of this linked list. So to make it equivalent, or to give the analogy with our uh, previous slide, right, what would happen is I would give the copy of this book to everybody in our network. So when I say our network is, let's say, all of us, right, in this live session, what I would do is I will make sure that everybody has the same copy of this book, and then whenever I need to do any transaction, right, I will go and tell all of you that I have done this transaction, and what you will do in return is you will kind of update your book. Correct. So now let's say if I try to do another transaction to other person, you would already know and say that, okay, no boss, you don't have enough money to do this transaction. Correct. So that's how whole blockchain works. Every nodes in the blockchain, right? So here nodes are basically this copy of this book. Every node in the blockchain holds or records the same data, correct, and then they use this data to verify the state of the any transaction which are incoming, and that's how it helps the network to maintain its validity, right? So nobody can do any fraudulent transaction, because whenever, let's say, if somebody tries to do any fraudulent transaction, the other nodes will tell that no, this is wrong, right? And in blockchain, the majority, whatever majority of people decide, right, that will be treated as a source of truth. So let's say if I have, let's say, 50 rupees in my balance, and then I announce that I am trying to transfer 100 rupees to Rajdeep, correct, and then all of you would come and say that no, you can't do this transaction, because in my account or my book you have only 50 rupees, so you can't do the transaction of 100 rupees, so this transaction would fail. Now instead of that, let's say if I'm trying to do transaction of rupees 40, right, so what you would do is in your book you would update my balance with, let's say, total balance minus 40, which would be 10 rupees, and then you would plus or add to the Raddeep's balance, right? And now all of our books are in sync, correct. So that's how my transaction is accepted, and a transaction is valid only if majority of the people, right, in the network agrees on that. Correct. So now let me just go through some of the questions here. So I need to wait for my 100 pile of before my transaction is added to a block. Yes, that is correct. I will tell you why that is required and what are pro and cons of that, right? Yes. Hash value singly linked list. Yes. So before a page is completed, the transaction on are it unsecure? Yes. So those are not kind of unsecure, but those transactions won't be committed. So when I say committed, is kind of accepted by everyone. So what I would generally do is everybody will be kind of putting their transaction in a pool, and then all the, let's say, nodes, right, they'll take first 50 transaction from the pool, and then they'll see that they'll make sure that whether transaction is valid or not, and they will form a block, and they will send this block to everybody else, correct. And if that block gets kind of accepted by everyone, then it becomes a valid block, and all the transaction within the block becomes valid, correct. Okay. If there are multiple blocks, which book do you trust when verifying a transaction? Yes. So when there are multiple books, right, in a Bitcoin blockchain, what happens is whichever is the heaviest chain. So to make it in a simple terms, whichever book has the highest number of pages, right, that would be trusted as a valid book. Why or how, that I will cover in again in next 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah. We'll go through majority, I think. Yes, Jatin, correct. The rule states that the longest chain is the accepted chain. Yes, exactly. The longest or heaviest chain, right? In layman's term, whichever chain has a most number of blocks, or here whichever book has a most number of pages, which will be like treated as a correct book. Why? Because majority of the people, right, they will try to make sure that the network stays valid, right? So the it's like kind of logical that the book which has most number of pages, right, it has the majority from everybody, correct. Yeah. So yes, going back to our linked list, right, so this is how a blockchain looks like, correct. So it's a distributed universal ledger, right, in which everybody will have the copy of the same data. First block is always called as a genesis block, correct. And then what happens is each block, right, each block will have different components. So it will have its header. Header is nothing but the some metadata. What is that metadata? I'll just tell you in a while. So each block will have a header and set of transactions. So this is equivalent to one page. So let's say in this case, each block has a 50 transaction. After 50 transaction, what happens is all this data, right, we create a hash out of this data, and that hash will be used, right, by the next block. So here in the, let's say, second block, right, the header will look like the previous hash was something xxxs, right, and then the current transactions are, let's say, new from 51 to 100, right, and with all those data I will creating a new hash. What if the longest chain is fag? I'll tell you about that. That is called 51% attack. How that happens and why that can't happen, right, on Bitcoin network. I'll just tell you about that. Correct. So again, talking about our linked list, right? Each of the node will have similar kind of structure, and the hash of any node, right, which will be used by the next block. Correct. And let's say if you change any data in, let's say, any of the node, all the next hashes would be invalidated. So if you know about a little bit about, let's say, cryptography, right, if I create a hash of any documents or any binary or any string, right, if I change any letter or even a bit in that data, the hash whatever is generated, right, it will change. So that's kind of that's how we make sure that all the data goes on blockchain, right? It's immutable. So basically, if you change one block, right, you have to go and change the hash of all the subsequent blocks, right, till the tail of the whole linked list or a latest block of a blockchain. Correct. If one block fail, all other blocks are not accessible. What do you mean by let's say a block fails? Like how do you what do you term as a block's failure, right? I'm not able to get Minal. Yeah, so basically that's how whole blockchain is formed, right? With the usage of the hash of a previous block, right? I create a current block, and then if that block gets accepted by everybody, it will be added to my longest chain or the valid chain. Correct. So now just to give you idea, right? See, this is what or this is how your Bitcoin address looks like. So if you are familiar with okay, just a minute, data about block is metadata. Yeah, how do we seal the block? We seal the block using hash function. Yes, exactly, whatever Jatin has said, right? Using any cryptographic algorithm or a hash algorithm, right? We seal the data. So once that is sealed, right, when the hash is generated, if you change the data, your hash will change. But then this hash is used by next block, and that block's hash is again used by another block. So if you change hash in any other block, you have to go and change hashes of all other blocks. So that's where the whole complexity comes into picture. Correct. So yeah, coming back to this, right, this is how your address or Bitcoin address looks like. You can think it of as a, let's say, your bank account number, correct, or your UPI ID. So let's see like what happens when you try to send a Bitcoin, right? This is how simple it is to send a Bitcoin, right? You select that from my Bitcoin wallet, you just want to send to address this. So this is a public address. What is a public address? What is a private key, right? We'll be discussing all about that. So you can send data to any of the public address. You can mention the BTC amount that you want to send, right? You would know that what kind of a fee that it would incur for sending the transaction. Why we need to pay fee, that also I'll tell. Right, and then once you press on send, right, it will basically kind of deduct that balance from your account, and will be adding the amount minus, let's say, transaction fee, right? The remaining amount into the other guy's account. Correct. So what happens is, whenever you create this transaction, right, of sending a data, uh, it will be kind of goes to a mining pool. So again, what is mining, right? So this is the first time I think most of you would be hearing about, let's say, mining. So don't think it off as some kind of a heavy word, right? It's very simple process. Mining is a kind of a process of let's say packing different transactions into a block and then validating that block. Correct. So when I say packing is each blockchain, right, they will decide that how many transactions they want to put it into a single block. In our Bhai Khata, we were able to do only 50 transactions, right? But again, that was bound by the number of lines each page had. In a digital world, right, blocks are generally defined by the memory, right? So it could be 1 MB or 2 MB or 10 MB of a block size. Correct. So when I say 1 MB or 2 MB, right, it's that equivalent data. So each transaction will have like all the metadata, like, okay, who is doing the transaction, right? Then who is receiving the, let's say, amount in this transaction, then all other information like signature, because whenever you want to send any data or want to make any transaction, right, you have to sign it with your private key. Correct. So all those data would be there in one transaction. So that will amount to, let's say, uh, KB, right? So it could be, let's say, 0.5 KB also, it could be 1 KB also. Again, it differs on how much data that you are putting into each transaction. And once you, let's say, take all this kind of a transaction together, right? Let's say you take 1,000 transactions of 1 KB, right? So that would be kind of, or let's say, not 1,000 but 1 lakh transaction of 1 KB, right? So that will be kind of a 1 MB of transaction. Correct. So that's where you kind of define your one block. So in process of mining, what happens is whenever anybody wants to make a transaction, that transaction will go to some kind of a pool, right, where all the unconfirmed transactions will be there, which are not confirmed yet that this is a valid or not. All the nodes, right? So these nodes are running a piece of software. This piece of software is the actual brain of, let's say, your blockchain network. What this piece of software does is it picks different transactions from the pool, right, and it kind of orders them by, let's say, its timestamp, right, or fees or any other order, right? Whatever the guy who has written the blockchain or whatever logic that blockchain has, right, they can pick those transactions, they can create a block, right, and then they can kind of publish this block. So to publish a block, right, anybody can publish a block, and then it could be that somebody is publishing a wrong block or fraudulent block, right? To prevent that, uh, there is a thing called consensus algorithm, right? So why a consensus algorithm is required is to maintain the validity of a blockchain. So in case of, let's say, Bitcoin network, the consensus algorithm it uses, right, it's called proof of work. So basically what happens is each block should be assigned a nonce. Nonce is some kind of a unique number that the block should have in order to, let's say, get accepted as a valid block. And how do we generate this nonce is via proof of work. So proof of work is a mining process. Basically you give your computation power, right, and once that complex computation is done, right, using your CPU or, let's say, your electricity, basically, right, in simpler terms, a number is generated, and that number will be given for that particular block by that particular node. Now this process will be done by all the nodes in the system, and whoever submits the first valid block, right, that block will be accepted as a valid block. So this is the whole process of mining. I know it's a little bit complex, right? And it requires, let's say, much more time to explain in details, right? But here, as a part of this session, right, we don't have to deep dive, but you can probably note down these terms, right? Like proof of work or mining, right? Or knowns. And then later you can kind of read in detail about this, right? Or you can kind of uh, direct your queries to us, right? Once the session is over, and on Telegram group or other the channels that we'll be sharing, right? You can direct your queries to us, and we'll be more than happy to explain this in details. uh, so that, like, the time is very less, right? For us in these sessions, right? It's just total of 4 hours, so I won't just jump into much more details of, let's say, how mining exactly works, right? But you can think it of mining as some kind of a process, right, of validating a block, and hence keeping the validity of the whole chain or whole the network itself, right? So yes, any questions regarding this, right? You can just ask me in the comment section, right? I'll just pause for a minute or so, so you can direct me your questions. I know this is a lot, but these are the fundamentals which are required to let go forward. So yeah, any questions? Please feel free to ask, right? And yeah, before anybody asks, right, I think Anupam had asked, what if longest chain is faked, right? So yes, that could happen. So when, let's say, 51% of the nodes, right, they come together, right, or they take all the electricity and hash power of the network, right, they can alter the chain or the blocks, right? But then in that case, what would happen is the network's validity will be lost. So what could happen is all those 51% of the people in the network, right, they can add unlimited bitcoins into, let's say, their account, which you basically can't. Correct. But yeah, they can add unlimited amount of bitcoins, or they can reverse all the transactions from their account. So basically their balance increases, but then the validity of the network is lost, so nobody would be able to use the network, and then there is no point of those bitcoins values. So the value of any currency, right, it is getting derived by how much of the use that currency is, right? So in this case, let's say if many people think that bitcoin is of no use, right, so its value will be zero, versus, let's say, many people think that, okay, bitcoin is of two use, right, or it is very useful, and then demand is more than the supply, right, then prices goes up. So that's the basic economic rule, right? I don't see any questions. I think yeah, if you guys are like confused or anything, right, you can just post it straight away, because these are the some important concept, right, that would be needing for further advancement, right? Correct. So I think that answers your question that yeah, if 51% attack happens, right, there's no point. Also, other point is during this mining process, right, uh, a bitcoin will be generated. So the guy who, let's say, kind of mines or creates a block successfully, right, he will be rewarded with some number of bitcoins by the network itself, and that is how bitcoins are generated. Total number of bitcoins that can be generated like this, right, through mining is 21 million, and already more than 18 million bitcoins are mined, right? So basically, like in eternity, right, there will be only 21 million bitcoins, unlike our let's say US dollar or INR, right, where RBI or Fed can come and they can print as much money as they want, right? So that will again cause inflation. In Bitcoin, it's kind of reverse of that, right? So your supply is limited, fixed, right? Everybody knows there is a public record of that supply, right? And then only the demand will increase. So basically the value of Bitcoin goes up. So that's how it works. Theoretically, if I have a supercomputer, can I make my own longest chain and cheat the system? Everything will fail. Yes, theoretically, yes, you can do that, but then the network will lose its value. So that's what happens. That's why every individual node in the network, right, or all the mining pool, they try to make sure that the network is not attacked by 51% of the attack. And globally, there are so many thousands of Bitcoin nodes, right, distributed or in a decentralized manner, that it's kind of now difficult to, let's say, get hold of all the network in a offline manner to bring, let's say, 51% of the people together, right? Because in the most of the cases you don't know who is mining a Bitcoin, correct, unless they are famous mining pools. So practically you can't bring all of them together to do a 51% attack, and even if you do, it will lose its value. So the motives of your, let's say, doing all this kind of attack, right, that I will use so much computation power to alter the blockchain, right, that financial reward is not that worthy, right? So yes, theoretically you can do, that's why it is called 51% attack, right? But practically it's kind of nearly impossible to do that. See, the person mining fakes the value and submits the block first. The other nodes have to accept the. No. Yeah, so other nodes will only accept, right, only if all the data of that block is valid, right? So that validation will again happen by all the nodes of that particular block. So if they know that, okay, in my ledger this data is wrong, right, person A doesn't have enough balance to transfer it to person B, right, then that transaction will be invalidated. So that block will be again marked as an invalid block and nobody will accept, even though it is a first block, right? Yeah, but it's a good question. Correct, Jatin. Yeah, the value of Bitcoin goes down in that case. Correct. So that's the whole reward of mining, right? So the people who are running nodes to make sure that the network stays valid, they will be rewarded with the blockchain. So let's say whenever you want to buy a Bitcoin, right? This Bitcoin is coming from these miners. These miner guys would be selling their Bitcoin on, let's say, some exchange, right? From where you are buying. In India, you can buy Bitcoin from, let's say, there are so many coin, DCX, WazirX, right? And this is not a financial advice, right? Do your own research before buying. Just for a technical clarity, right? I'm just telling that how the whole process happens, right? Correct. What is Bitcoin losing its value in a network, and how many networks are there? Bitcoin, there is only one network, right? You can't create another network, basically using the same, like there can't be two Bitcoin networks, because now the Bitcoin network is too big to, let's say, kind of create another network. If let's say you have only 10 nodes, right, then you can create another 10 nodes, and you can start that network and grow that network. But now the network has thousands of nodes and everybody is trusting this network. So even if you start another network with the same, let's say, code, you won't get that trust, right? So technology is not only factor here, right? The way whole economics works, right, that is also another factor in all these things. But we won't be touching, let's say, price or economic side of the Bitcoin. Okay, so mining reward we have, like now I think all of you would be knowing about what is mining reward, right? For validating a block or for creating a block, right, a miner or a node, they get a Bitcoin. So that is your mining reward. And it's not the only reward, right? So all the transactions in particular block will have some kind of a fees, right? Because again, in a decentralized network, nothing is for free. If you compare it to, let's say, our Google Photos example, right, where you were storing your photos for free, correct? and then in turn, like you are giving access to Google to your or mine your photos for data, right? So here what happens in a decentralized world is for everything you have to pay. So here to do a transaction you are paying fees. So any miner, right, who kind of successfully validates or mines a block, he'll get all the fees of all the transaction within that particular block. So once, let's say, all the 21 million bitcoins are mined, the miners will get only the fees from the blocks. So I think in beginning of the session somebody had asked that what happens if all 21 million bitcoins are mined. Yeah, you will be getting the miners basically will be getting the fees. Is there any starting investment? That again depends on what do you want, what do you consider as a starting investment, right? Correct. I'll just show you the how actual mining process is and how costly it could be. Correct. So yeah, whatever we have discussed this, right, that we solve a mathematical puzzle which will create a unique number which will get attached to a block to make sure that this block it's kind of a proof of work, or it's kind of a receipt that yes, this node has done some work and this is the receipt for that. Correct. Yeah. Cool. So yes, this is what I was talking about, right? Each block will have previous hash. Only the genesis block or the first block won't have previous hash. Then it will have some data. Data is nothing but all the transaction that you want to put it in this block. Nonce, right? So nonce is that number, right? Proof of work receipt that I was telling that yes, this particular node has done some proof of work. He has done the mining. He has solved some mathematical complex problem, and this is a kind of receipt for that. And then combining all these three, right, with show 256, you will be able to generate the hash for that block. And now this hash will be used uh, for next block as a previous hash. Correct. So I'll be just giving you a quick let's say demo of the blockchain right here. Let me share my screen. Yeah, I think you all are able to see my screen. Yeah, so as you are able to see, right, this welcome to blockchain demo 2, right, this is our genesis block. I can here say that, let's say, welcome dev club, right? So this is my data that I want to put it in a genesis block. Correct. And this is the hash which got generated. My previous hash was nothing, right? So what could happen is I can create a new block. Correct. So here you can see my previous hash, right? This is the hash of this block, which is my genesis block. So here what can I do is I can add some other data that let's say welcome to Tezos 101. Correct. So now you can see that a new hash is generated. Correct. Now if I create a new block, this hash is used as a previous hash, and I can create, let's say, let's learn and learn. Okay, so then again a new hash is created. Now let me go back to the first block, and I just add this string, welcome to dev club IITD. Correct. So now you can see the hash is changed. So this hash is also changed, and then uh, hash of the block number 2, right, that has also changed. Correct. So that's how blockchain makes sure that the data, right, it stays true. What I'll do is I'll just share this link with you in the comment section. You all of you can just open this link and try out on your own. Can anybody from the organizer share this link with the participants? Yeah, correct. So just open this link, right? Try to create some blocks and then see that how changing a data in, let's say, any of the previous block, right, that will change hash of your latest block. So let's say if you create 4 blocks, right, every block will have some hash, and then if you try to alter data in, let's say, first or second or 0th block, right, which is a genesis block, your hash for the 4th block will be changed. Right, so just try it out. Meanwhile, yeah, if you have any questions, you can just post it in the comments again. Yeah, to validate the block and find nonce, what does the node have to do? They have to solve a mathematical complex puzzle, right? So again, this puzzle is kind of inbuilt into each of the node. So they have to do all this processing. The result of this puzzle will be a nonce, right? Nonce is nothing but a unique number, which will be kind of a receipt of the work that I have done. So again, to solve this mathematical puzzle, right, what you have to do is you have to put your computation power. So in early days, people used to mine bitcoins with, let's say, your regular laptop, right? But now what happens is, to mine a bitcoin, right, you would require enormous energy, right? So the total consumption of energy that is required for bitcoin mining for a year, right, that exceeds the total energy consumption of some of the nation on the planet, right? So now that can give you idea that how much energy it would require, right? So if you just go and search bitcoin mining farm, right, on Google, I think it will give you some idea, right? Let me just share it with you. If you are seeing my screen, right, this is how a bitcoin mining farm looks like. This much power it is required to, let's say, mine a single block. Yeah, so nonce is not there on this demo, right? Because nonce comes only when you have, let's say, multiple nodes coming into picture, right? Or you are making a transaction. The demo, right? The demo just shows you that how each block is getting generated, right? And it doesn't tell you about validation of the each block, right? So all these nonce and the concept of mining comes into picture when there are multiple people who are trying to prove that the block I have generated, right, it's the correct block. So there are all these different concepts, right? Once you put all of them together, it gives you the complete blockchain. So that's why I think it's not part of this demo that I shared, right? Yeah, again, so going back to our PPT. Yeah, so a blockchain is a digital record of a transaction, right, where blocks containing transaction data are linked together in a single list. called a chain. And again, blockchain are used for recording transaction made with cryptocurrencies, right? Bitcoin, and then it can have many other applications, right? A nonce is a number or a hash that you can tell. It's a kind of a long number, right? Generally in Bitcoin world, the more number of zeros, right? I think in the prefix of any that whole big number, right? 32-bit, more number of zeros, more difficult it is to generate that kind of a number. You can read more about that on later, right? You can just note it down. With the limited time, I probably won't be able to deep dive regarding that, right? Yeah, cool. Okay, I don't know why it is not sharing. Okay, it started and stopped. Yeah, so I'll be sharing this video link as well, right? With you guys, just take a look at this, right? This kind of concludes, this video kind of concludes of all the things that we have discussed, right? It's kind of a pictorial representation of the whole thing, right? In a proper manner, right, in a sequence. So I think it would help you to kind of uh, understand the concepts better, right? So it's not, I think, very big video probably. It's, yeah, approximately 5 minutes, so you can just kind of quickly take a look. Can somebody just share this again link with all the participants shared in the chat? Yes, Mrityunjay, right? What you are saying is correct. Nonce is something the miner generates to prove that it got the mine block right. Yeah, it is correct. Each miner or each node, right? When I say miner would be generally a person. In more general sense of a blockchain, each an, a machine, right? It's at the end of the day, it's just a machine. So each machine is called a node in a blockchain. Correct. So yeah, they do all this computation to make sure that the work is done and the network is right, or the whatever work they've done is right. Yeah. So I think I've shared the GDG Gwalior has shared the video, right? Just take a look at that video, right? Till I answer the, let's say, other questions, right? And the cost of mining, right? As of now, I think it's too much to like kind of break even. It would take, I think, more than year or 18 months, right? And you have seen the setup, right? So to create that big setup, right, you need to like have to have cheap electricity, right? And then you have to have proper miners. Now ASIC miners, right? So those are pretty famous. If you are aware of ASIC technologies, right? If some of you are from electronics background, they would be able to relate, right? And yeah, and what happens is, so there are other two things, right? Just on a side note is, let's say if it becomes too easy, right? If let's say there is too much mining power on the network, or let's say the machine not so advanced, right, that they are able to mine a block within, let's say, a few minutes. So let's say earlier a machine used to mine a block in 10 minutes, and now let's say with the more power, right, it's able to mine a block in 5 minutes, right? So now what happens, right? The nodes are smart. What they do is they automatically adjust the difficulty of the problem, right? So they will increase the difficulty of the problem that everybody solves, right? So now again the time taken would be again 10 minutes. Similarly, let's say if and these networks, right, so it's a P2P communication. Everybody, like all the nodes will be talking to each other, so they would know what is going on the network, right? So let's say if difficulty is too much, right, they would reduce the difficulty, right, to make sure that the number of blocks being generated in a particular time period, right, those remain same. So in blockchain, in Bitcoin network, right, generally it's calculated at every 2 weeks. There are fixed number of blocks, and within 2 weeks, if you generate, let's say, more number of blocks, right, it will automatically increase the difficulty. And if, let's say, the number of blocks are reduced, right, then it will lower the difficulty, so that that number maintains. Yeah. Okay, what was the logic behind limiting the number of bitcoins to 21 million? Yeah, so it's about I don't know why 21 million, right? But the whole concept of limiting number of bitcoins is to say that the demand, right, the supply will be always limited. So generally, what happens is when you have unlimited supply, right, the inflation comes to picture. You can inflate any money, right? Generally what happens is, let's say if we talk about Indian rupee, right, uh, the value of rupee, right, it gets derived by, let's say, multiple factors, right, that against, like, whatever gold reserve that RBI holds, or how much foreign currency reserve that RBI holds, right. Based on that, a value of 1 INR is kind of calculated, right. But here in the and but that again the supply is unlimited. How? Because at any time, right, RBI can come and reduce that. Okay, now the gold which is to be like reserved, right, I can lower that percentage, right. Recently, if you are aware, right, Fed has, I think, moved that gold reserve ratio to, I think, almost 0 or 1%, right, to, let's say, print money. So now they can print any money, right, basically. So that's the whole thing. Once your supply becomes too much, right, the inflation comes into picture. If you are familiar with Venezuela, right, or let's say for that matter Zimbabwe, right, I think they had 1 lakh rupee, not 1 lakh rupee, but 1 lakh of whatever their currency, right, notes. But you were able to just buy a packet of bread or a packet of milk, right, with that. So that's how whole inflation happens. To control that inflation, right, the Bitcoin network has a limited supply. So once your supply is limited, yeah, you basically control the inflation. So it means if I collecting more and more, then difficulty will increase day by day. Yes, it is correct. It is correct. Not 100%, but yes, it is 80% correct. But isn't too much supply prevented by increasing the difficulty of problems? Yes, that's what we are. See, again, it's not too much supply. It's like at what. So what Bitcoin network has done is all the bitcoins will be, let's say, kind of mined at some particular regular interval, right? So the whole timeline is like every 4 years, right? The number of bitcoins you get as a reward, right? That gets half, correct, plus the number of, let's say, blocks which get generated in 2 weeks, right, that is also fixed. So if you see in a concept of time, right, or in a timeline, what we are trying to do is we are trying to maintain some kind of a minimum duration, so that this 21 million supply, right, that doesn't run out that quickly. Correct. So that's the whole deal. But yeah, one day all of that it will be mine, right? Let me just search. I think it was somewhere, 2140, right? So in about 120 years, the whole supply will be like, it will be all of the bitcoins will be mined, right? So that's how like the supply is controlled. Yeah, cool. So now what all we have talked, right? It's all about just transferring the money, right? That you can send, let's say, number of bitcoins from person A to person B. Also, one other interesting fact is, let's say if you want to move millions of money in a bitcoin, right? It would cost you, I think, just about $20 to $25, right? And now just you can go and check that how much money that you need to pay to banks. Let's say if you want to move millions of money from let's say United States to India or any other country, right? And then how much of any legal channels, right, or anything that you have to go through. Generally, even to transfer, let's say, right, 2-3 lakhs, it takes somewhere about 1 week to 2 week, right, to do swift transaction, if any one of you have done, right? So that much time it takes. But with bitcoin it will be done in what, like within probably 10 minutes, right? So that's the power of blockchain, right? That's the power of payments network, that we can settle any money in any currency from anywhere to anywhere, right? So bitcoin is the base currency basically here. Yeah, see, I think Kanishk is correct, right? It's 2.4%. So you can just calculate 2.4 of 1 million. That would be you losing in just fees. Yeah, cool. So this was all about, let's say, Bitcoin or blockchain 1.0, right? So as if you compare to internet, right, whatever website I had shown you, right, Alta Vista, you can compare that with this, right, blockchain 1.0. It is very basic form, right? It just does one thing, right? So now that whole evaluation has happened, right? So there comes the Ethereum. So Ethereum is again called blockchain 2.0. Why? Because Ethereum has a concept of smart contract, right? So what are smart contract? So here all we have discussed is just one concept, that anybody can send money from let's say one person to other person, and then all those data gets recorded on the blockchain. Those data is immutable, so at any point of time in future, right, I can go and prove that this transaction had happened, right? I can always prove the validity of that transaction by traversing the blocks, right? Using the transaction hash, I can show all the details that on this particular date, at this exact time, right, this transaction had happened. And that's how we are making sure that all our balances are valid and stays up to date. But what if, let's say, we want to extend this all things, right, all this kind of a security and transparency to our data as well? Because our data is also vulnerable, right? If our data is, let's say, staying within some company's servers, right? So anybody can, let's say, any developer from that company, right, he can access the server, he can access the data. In most of the companies right now, they have started kind of preventing the access of developers from particular production machines. Otherwise, earlier everybody used to have access to any production machine, and what used to happen is anybody can go and alter the data, or kind of change the data, right? So to prevent that, you can leverage a blockchain, right? So smart contract is the way to, let's say, kind of store data or run some kind of a business logic on the blockchain. So smart contract looks like a piece of code, right, that you have to write. It's some kind of a logic, correct? This piece of code will be deployed on the blockchain. So this piece of code will run on the all the nodes in the network, right? Once it is successfully deployed, right? And then anybody can call this, let's say, smart contract and do some interaction. So just to give you example, right, you can write a smart contract to store our other information on the public blockchain. So earlier I think there was so much of issue, right, when I think other information was leaked and sold on, I think the whole DB was, I think, getting sold for like 250 rupees, right? So yeah, all this kind of things you can prevent. What you can do is you can write a smart contract to store the data on the blockchain and retrieve the data. So once data is stored, right, you can refer to, let's say, this data and can do a verification, and whatever goes on blockchain, right, it kind of stays on blockchain. That's the thumb rule. Nobody can alter that. Even if you try to, so it's not like you are not allowed to alter, but nobody can alter illegally. So even if you, let's say, alter that data, right, there will be proof of that alteration as well, that on this particular date with this transaction, which was signed by, let's say, one person or multiple person, and then it was committed, right? So all those kind of proofs will be there on the blockchain. So that's the whole idea of smart contracts, right? Once you write a smart contract and deploy a smart contract, I think it would make more sense to you that how exactly it works, right? So that's all about blockchain 2.0, right? Ethereum, which is a popular blockchain, right? The other than Bitcoin network, right? So it first, I think, Ethereum brought this functionality of smart contract, right? They introduced the whole blockchain world to the smart contract, and now almost every other blockchain, right, they have this facility of writing a smart contract on the blockchain. Again, if you go and now do your research about, let's say, blockchains, right, you will see there are like hundreds of different blockchains. All of blockchains will have the concepts that we have discussed, right, kind of consistent. So what are those concepts are like, there will be a mining process, right? Then there will be some kind of a cryptographic algorithm involved, right, to validate the transactions or to store the transactions. Then it will have smart contracts, right? And but there consensus algorithm, right, which was proof of work, that could change, or some other parameters could change. And why those parameters change is to suit the blockchain to some particular domain. So for finance, you can alter some parameters and create some kind of a network which is more useful for finance. But let's say you, when you talk about supply chain, right, you need different kind of a network. So you can create that kind of a blockchain network. So that's why there are so many different blockchains. So Bitcoin, then Ethereum, Tezos, Hyperledger Fabric, right? All those are different blockchains, right? Correct. Okay, let me take this question. This is one silly question where neither some veteran or newcomers keep saying the crypto market is only PND comment easily to index. See, we are not here to talk about the money part of the cryptocurrencies, right? Yeah, we are at initial stage, right? So where the total population, right, which is involved in, let's say, cryptocurrency is in I think 1 digit percentage of total Earth's population, right? So yes, with that much less market, right, it is easy to manipulate market. But we are not here to, let's say, talk about that, right? We are very past than that, and now things look much more stable, right? And the tech benefit of the whole blockchain world is far more better than the whatever monetary benefit of, let's say, doing all this pump and dump type of things, right? Yeah. Okay. Earning a lot. Why should I learn blockchain, BTC mining, blah blah blah? So easily I can get everything from paid group. Yeah, again, see, this is not about pricing part, right? Here we are able to, or we have gathered to learn the technology part of it, right? Once you learn the technology, right, you can apply the same principle, and you can even write your own blockchain, right, for any use case that you are working on. And it's not necessary to, let's say, tie your blockchain with any of the cryptocurrency. the meaning of public blockchain, I know it comes only from the native currencies involved with it, right? But then there could be some hybrid model as well, right? Which is independent of any kind of cryptocurrency. So it is possible, right? There are arguments or debates about that, but yeah, we shouldn't be, let's say, speculating or talking anything about prices here. Cool. Any other questions, guys? Please feel to ask, right? Because these are the concepts we'll be using in tomorrow's session, right? Where we'll be doing some kind of a hands-on. Correct. So now let's talk about Tezos. What is Tezos? And Tezos is called again Blockchain 3.0, right? So let's talk about that. Just a minute, I'm just sharing. Yeah. So Tezos is another blockchain platform, right? It does few things different from any other blockchain platform, right? We will be discussing what are those different things and why Tezos does those things differently from any other platform, right? This is a Tezos white paper. Yeah, by the way, anybody who wants to, let's say, learn about blockchain, right? I would advise you to just go back and read Bitcoin's white paper once, right? It is pretty small, right? Very technical, right? And very straightforward. So it's easy to understand. You should just go and read about all these things, right? To further strengthen your understanding of a blockchain, right? You should be always starting with that. Correct. So see, that's what there are multiple issues that Tezos is addressing, right? So one issue of that is hard forks. So if you heard about that, right, hard forks. Generally, what happens is in any blockchain network, right, all the nodes in the network would be running some piece of software. Now, let's say you want to update some more features, right? So in that case, what happens is you have to go and update all the nodes of the network. But then these nodes are being run by some people, right? In some of the cases, in most of the cases actually, you wouldn't know who is running these nodes, right? So you have to kind of bring all of them on a common platform, pitch your idea that okay, this is the kind of update I want to push to the nodes, right? And if all of them agrees, you go and update all the nodes, right? So, and let's say if people don't agree, right, then what happen is there will be, let's say, some people who are running the old version of the code, then there will be some people who would be running the new version of the code, right? So now you have two different networks, one network with the old code, one network with the new code, and that's what is called as a hard fork, right? It is as similar as you are forking a repo from GitHub, right? So there will be two divided communities, right, which will be supporting one version and other version. Okay, so what's the requirement of doing all these hard forks? One of the main reason is fraudulent activities, right? So on Ethereum, what had happened is there was a error in one of the smart contract, right? And because of that, I think some 30 million or few millions were stolen from the Ethereum network. And because of that, what they did is they had kind of reversed the blockchain. Ideally, it should not happen. Whatever goes on a blockchain stays on the blockchain. But for greater good, right, what had happened is all the community, they came together and they decided that okay, in whichever block the fraudulent transaction had happened, right, we will kind of go in reverse till that block, and from that block onwards we'll create a new set of blocks with omitting that transaction. So basically you are reversing the transaction. So let's say person A had stolen funds from person B's account, right? So you would go one block prior to that, in which person A hadn't stolen any money from the person B's account, and from there you start a new blockchain. Correct. So yes, on Ethereum network that had happened. So the current Ethereum network that you see, right, it is that network on which the blocks were kind of rolled back, right, and the original blockchain. So some of the people, like, they told that, okay, no, we don't want to do this rollback, right, because that is again against of whole blockchain principles, right. So they stayed back on the other network that is called as Ethereum Classic. So you can just go and Google about this, what is Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. So this kind of hard forks are pretty common in the blockchain world, right. So what Tezos did is Tezos brought self amendment. So here what happens is it's a kind of a software, right, which updates itself automatically. Correct. So that's what it says, that we have presented issues with the existing cryptocurrencies and offered Tezos as a solution. While the irony of preventing fragmentation of cryptocurrencies by releasing a new one does not escape us, Tezos truly aims to be the last cryptocurrency. Correct. So that's where we are talking about the hard forks, right? That what Tezos aims to be is that we'll kind of keep updating ourselves, right? That we don't have to hard fork, right? So yeah, that's what it means by, let's say, self amendment. Uh, I'll be talking about these slides later, right? So these are the key features of Tezos blockchain, right? So first, let me talk about the uh, upgradable to the state of art, right? That feature. So that is a self-amendment feature where, uh, let's say, changing or adding a feature on the blockchain, right, or updating a node, all that thing happens on the chain and not off the chain. Correct. So what happens is anybody can go and make a proposal that, okay, I want to kind of propose an update, right? And then everybody accepts that update, right? We kind of test that update, and then all of the nodes, they get upgraded automatically. So that's the main feature of, let's say, Tezos blockchain. I know it is a bit difficult to grasp this concept right at this stage. Yeah, but you can think it of as some kind of a software which kind of upgrades itself automatically, right. Then it's secure and institutional grade smart contracts, right. So these smart contracts are can be like it provides formal verification. So formal verification is a technique by which you can make sure, or you can mathematically prove that this whatever code you have written, right, it does exactly what it was meant, or what for what purpose it was written, right. So sometimes what happens is you write a code in particular language, it gets compiled into other language. Now if there are some vulnerabilities in the other language, right, in which it gets compiled to, right, somebody can alter or use your code to do some kind of a fraudulent activity on network. And that's what had happened on Ethereum, I think. So in Tezos blockchain, what happens is you can kind of mathematically prove the code that, yeah, it is very secure, right. And that's where most of the institutions, right, big banks and big financial institutions are trusting Tezos with their money, right, because of all this feature. So that's one of the most distinguishable feature of, let's say, Tezos blockchain. Yeah, and again, it's a completely decentralized. So as Om had mentioned in earlier, right, that whole Tezos is a decentralized. There is a no central person, right, or central authority which decides the everything, right. It's the community which comes together and they decide that what we want to do next, right. So it is open for participation, right. Anybody can join, anybody can come and mine, or in Tezos world, let's say, bake the block, right, and then they can proceed, right. So those are the main advantages of Tezos blockchain, right. Now coming back to this slide, Tezos had done ICO. ICO is a initial coin offering. It's a one kind of a crowdfunding, right, where people can come and invest into that particular company, right. So Tezos ICO had raised 361,000 ether, right? Which I'm not sure. It comes to, I think, 232 million, right? So yes, Tezos ICO had raised 232 million USD right back in 2017, right? And in 2018, the mainnet was launched, right? So mainnet is nothing but the main network which will never stop running, right? Which has all the nodes running 24 by 7, 365 days. So this was the feature I was talking about, right? Self amendment, where anybody can propose a update, right? Then uh, it is open for voting, right? So anybody can come and vote. If majority of people votes for the proposal, right, there will be a testing period where uh, where the node is running, right? In parallel, a new node will be running with this updated version, right? That is called kind of testing chain, right, or test net. And once the testing is done, right, your node will be automatically upgraded with the whatever new code that you have written, right? So the first amendment which had done was Athens, right? It had come from, I think, one of the our European community, so they had named it Athens. Second amendment was BabylonNet, right? And then recent was CarthagNet, correct? If anybody can, anybody from India, right? If we would be pushing this update, we can call it anything, right? We can call it Harappa, Mohenjo-daro, anything, right? So that's all about probably the amendments, right? Anybody can come and propose changes. That's how open it is. Yeah. So correct. So these are the things I have already talked, right? That see, this is how on left hand side, right? You can see bytecode. So in Ethereum, if you write a code, it gets compiled to this. On Tezos, if you write any smart contract, it gets compiled to Michelson. Michelson is a, you can kind of read it in it's a human readable format as well. Plus you can write some test cases, right? Or you can formally verify this piece of code, right? So formal verification again is a technique of mathematically verifying that this code exactly does whatever purpose it was written for, right? But you can't do this with bytecode, right? You can't kind of formally verify this bytecode. So formal verification is a very strong technique. It's there since very long, right? So all these mission critical products, right, like airline industries or defense equipments, right, they use this technique to make sure that products are like kind of fully secured. Basically there is no zero or almost close to zero chance of failure, right? So now those kind of features are available on Tezos blockchain or Tezos smart contracts, right? Yeah, I think this is pretty much it about, let's say, whole blockchain journey, right? So we started with, let's say, Bitcoin network. Then we learned about all the different concepts of how a transaction happens, what is mining, right? How Bitcoin is mined, what are rewards, right, for mining, and then coming to, let's say, what are smart contracts, and then what is Tezos, right? So and why Tezos is different from other blockchains. So I think those are the very fundamental concepts, right? We still have, I think, one concept, right, remaining for tomorrow's session, but that will, I think, will just take, I think, 10 to 15 minutes, and it's part of the hands-on session, right? So uh, I'll be just closing this session today, right? You are free to post your questions in comments. I'm here till the last question is answered, right? So yeah, I have enough time, so I'll be answering all of your queries. And then tomorrow, right, we'll be writing some smart contracts on Tezos, right, and we'll be deploying on a real network. So all you need is a browser, right, and a machine, correct? Uh, preferably Linux, if you guys have, right? Otherwise, Windows machine or Mac machine also would work. So yeah, that's it. And a working internet connection, that anyway you would have, given that the you would be attending live session. So yeah, I'm formally closing the session, but yeah, it's still open for any Q&A, right? So I'll be more than happy to answer those things, right? And the guys who would be leaving, right? See you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. We'll be writing some code in uh, Python like language. Yeah, and the other thing is, at the end of tomorrow's session, right? Towards the end of tomorrow's session, I'll be giving one assignment to you guys, right? And the top guys, right, who are able to finish the assignment in a proper manner, we have some exciting gifts and goodies for you, right? We'll be sending those goodies to your home, right, directly. So yeah, I think come prepared with that. If you can, if you are knowing Python, right, that is well and good. If you don't know Python, you can just have a, probably you can spend 1 hour and just get familiar with all the basics of Python, right? We'll be using Python to do our coding tomorrow. Yeah. And for any other thing, right, you can head over to our Tezos India blog, Tezos India Telegram channel, right? I'll be just sharing in comment section. Yeah, just a minute. I'll be just sharing Tezos Telegram channel. We have Tezos India and Tezos India developers as well. So you can join any of the channel, right? We are pretty much active there. So you can ask us your all questions, doubt, right? Yeah, anybody from the organizing team, just share this username of the channel, right? You search a channel by this and you would be able to find the channel. Yeah. Correct. And please feel free to answer the any questions or queries you like post the queries, not answer in the chat, right? What is the need of increasing difficulty of mining apart from inflation? So generally, how it happens is there is this interesting debate, right, about what should be the time between two blocks, right? Because generally, what happens is, let's say, if your time between two blocks is too much, right, then the time to, let's say, a transaction to get confirmed, right, it increases. So to say it in simple manner, let's say if I have a time between two blocks is 15 minutes, right? So if I do a transaction now, it can take up to maximum of 15 minutes, right, to get it confirmed or to get it included in one block. But now what it does is, to make it, let's say, time between two blocks of 15 minutes, right, what happens is, uh, whatever algorithm I'm using, right, that difficulty, right, it will be that much, that to compute that nonce, it will take 15 minutes. That's why time between my two blocks is 15 minutes. Now if I reduce it to, let's say, 1 minute, what would happen is my transaction would be committed within 1 minute, or it gets confirmed in 1 minute. But now let's say if I want to alter the whole blockchain, right? So now think it of as a, let's say there are 1,000 blocks, right? And I want to do, or I want to reverse some transaction in 500th block, right? So now what happens is I have to alter the transaction in 500th block, then 501, 502, 503, up to, let's say, latest block, which is a 1,000th block, right? 1,000 block. So now I have to go and alter this 500 blocks between 500 and 1,000. Now you think it of as a, let's say, the time between two block, or right, or difficulty, it is 15 minutes, right? So that means I would require 500 into 15 minutes, that much time to alter all the blocks. Then only I'll be able to catch up to the real chain. But during this time, my original chain would have progressed much, right? So what I need to do is I need to put more computation power, versus, let's say, if I don't have that much difficulty, right, then it becomes easy to kind of alter all the blocks, right? And then basically change the whole longest chain concept, right? The fake chain will be the longest chain. So to prevent that, we have to kind of keep on increasing the difficulty again. But let's say again, if we increase the too much difficulty, then transaction confirmation time increases. So that's why we maintain this difficulty to a such a manner that within, let's say, 2 weeks period, a fixed number of blocks are getting generated. So if number of blocks are generated is more, then increase the difficulty. If it is less, decrease the difficulty. I think that answers your question, Mrutyunjay. Yeah, but this was very nice question, right? Yeah, very few people generally tend to ask this question, right? That how that whole thing works, right? Or how we can do 51% attack, right? Or why this difficulty is adjusted. You can read about more on the like once you do some research, right? You will get so many videos and articles about this, right? Yeah. And I think there's one more link that needs to be shared with you guys. So it's kind of a basics of whatever we are going to do tomorrow, right? So that you don't see everything as some kind of alien or jadoo, right? That what is happening. So I think Shaurya has shared that. If not, Shaurya, just share the latest link posted by Om, right, with all the participants. Yeah, so just go through this link, right? And it has basics of a smart pi, right, and how a smart contract is written. So just go through basics. I'll be covering basics tomorrow as well, right? But if you know basics, it becomes easier to understand all the concepts and all. Yeah, cool guys. I think then I'll be just ending the session. If you have any queries, just direct it to our Telegram group. We'll be more than happy to answer, or you can ask in tomorrow's session. Yeah, Shaurya, you can probably, or Geeta ma'am, you can take over.
Hi, Rignesh. Thank you so much to providing. It's a very essential knowledge. It's a very important for us, and I hope me and my team and my audience learn many things from you. and 100% we will implement in our career life. Dinesh, I think you answered many questions, I know, but after that, audience can be many queries, any question. So, audience, write your comments, write your queries by your comments, or you can mail to direct us on my meetup page on LinkedIn and any social media which shared by Tezos and TTT Gwalior and Delhi IIT Delhi club. So you can share your queries, your doubt about Tezos and anything other. 100% we will try to solve it. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Now you can say anything.
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to thank all of the audience that were here to be a part of this event. I hope you all got to learn a lot, and I was really impressed by the conversation that was going on in the comment section. So I think that people are really interested in blockchain technology and how it can be related to cryptocurrency. And if you could just share my screen, so I would like to tell people what do we have in store for them for tomorrow, and just reiterate with the ending links that were shared. So. So yeah, so I think you can see my screen now. So yeah, so basically, by today we talked a lot about blockchain and Ethereum, and we even have an intro to Tezos. So from tomorrow we'll have a hands-on session, as Ignesh already told. So we will be seeing how Tezos work as a protocol, how to run as a node, and so at the end he also shared this Telegram channel that you can use to be a part of their open source community. And I think one of the major important things that was not pressured enough, that Tezos is open source. So basically that's good, because that means that they're doing for the community and not just to earn money in the cryptocurrency, as most of us might think. And so yeah, so just join their Telegram channel if you want to join them. And for tomorrow, they asked us to visit this website, so we could have a intersection on Smart by Learning website. So this is basically Plants vs Zombie, as I hope most of you would know about it. So you can just check it out. And the day two event link has been also shared in the YouTube live comments, and they can also be found at the post at GDG post and our Facebook page and our other Facebook handles. So be sure to come in tomorrow, invite your friends, and tomorrow we will have an advanced session. So if you have anyone who's interested in these kind of things, please don't forget to invite them. I think that would be all from our side.
Thank you, Shaurya. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dignesh. And thank you, Om. Thank you so much. And now we should over. And I'm 100% sure you will enjoy also with our audience. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Have a nice day,
And,
everyone.
Yeah.
and stay
Same
safe.
here. Okay. Bye to all.